Good morning. How are you today? Well, it's about 66. It's very comfortable. It's windy, as maybe you can tell, and it promises to be a beautiful day. And tomorrow we're going to have freezing, driving rains. So I think the top news is the invasion. And as you well know, Putin has directed his forces to enter into Ukraine, into the area where the separatists were, where he claims to be responding to a request for annexation and protection. And so he expects it's going to be a broader landing, if you will, than is necessary to just go into those areas where the conflict has been. So that said, we have now recognized that as the United States and the West, that this is an invasion. So once you have that language in place, you wonder why the White House says, if the invasion grows, then we will do more. So what is that implicit? It says two things. We're okay with the invasion as far as it goes, and the sanctions we've given correspond to that part of the invasion. But if you do more invading, then we're going to pile on more. This is sort of like being more pregnant. You invaded. That's it. That was the fact. That is the offense. That is the thing that we sought to discourage, and we failed miserably because we proposed sanctions that didn't matter to Putin, because he has been collecting currency and means to defend against such sanctions now for years, ever since 2014, when we put sanctions in place after they'd seized Crimea. So the sanctions are not going to be very effective, and to the extent they have effect, it'll be months down the road. And the same is true of the pipeline as well, although that's more dangerous because that anticipated to be a great source of energy profits to Russia. But others will suffer because it was also a supply of energy, fossil fuels, if you know what I mean. And as a result, others are dependent on that. The United States has promised to find fuel elsewhere than this pipeline, which wasn't open, by the way, but it was waiting for a certification that Germany is now withholding. So there, what do we have? We probably have a situation in which the only way to deter Putin is to get physical, if you will, and we're not prepared to do that because we're not prepared to do it. This has been going on for months, but we haven't made a step in that direction. I don't think the NATO states are in any danger, because I think Putin understands that if he stays on his side of the fence, that we'll beat our chest and complain and say there's nothing like since World War II, but he'll get away with it, and he's going to move slowly. And I think his hopes is not to have lots of visible suffering. I don't know how that's avoidable, but I think he's prepared to weather that as well. So that's our World War situation. It makes me think of Monty Python a little bit. Our view is that he's the guy at the bridge in the Monty Python piece in which they cut off his leg, and he says, "Get out of the way." He says, "No, I'm not going to." He says, "We cut off your leg." He says, "Oh, it's a flesh wound." I think while that was a joke, because it was plainly more than a flesh wound, these sanctions are severe flesh wounds, but not enough to deter Putin, who's prepared for them. Coming back home, Trump, who's one of the few Americans who praised Putin's genius, his wall, by the way, was incomplete. And so there's a visible sore and destruction along the border where they cut through mountains, literally, to build the wall there. And parts of the wall are on the ground waiting to be installed and so forth. When you think about it, we could be spending the money that was spent on that wall on the bridges and roads and so forth that we claim need such repair that are failing us. But that's not how we do things, right? There's a good news story in the Arbery case. They'd already been convicted, if you will. But what this federal trial did, and for this the Justice Department earns its praise, the final verdict was that there was racial intent. And there was quite a number of emails and other documents to prove that they were racist in intent, and the N-word and stuff like that. So they've now been identified as racist who caused this problem. And so that's a success in the sense that if there's any way we can bring closure to the family, it is to have these people convicted of what they really did as opposed to how they might want to characterize it. I don't know how you characterize it when you've been convicted now twice, but there you have it. The Supreme Court is doing something with the LGBTQ community. There's a woman who wants to do websites, but only for heterosexual couples. And she refuses to do websites for gay couples, same-sex marriages, and so forth. There is a law, however, that is against discrimination, against gays, among others, but in this case, the question is about LGBTQ persons. And really the way I describe it is that this is a case of demanding the right to discriminate and claiming that's freedom of speech. Now, the freedom of speech does not mean you can say anything that comes into your mind. It doesn't mean that you can say hateful things. It doesn't mean you can incite to riot. It doesn't mean you can defame people knowing what you're saying is false and you're injuring them. So the freedom of speech is not unlimited. And this is another example. The freedom to discriminate because of your claimed religious view is not sufficient. So maybe it's the quiet temperature today. I feel very calm and easy, and it is beautiful out. But tomorrow we'll have to weather, literally, the icy storms. So get out if it's warm where you are today and enjoy it. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.